Welcome back, everyone. This is the third part of the coronavirus COVID-19 series that I've been putting together. The first two explain what a virus is and what this virus does to your body. And this one is going to be COVID-19 versus the world. And I thought a good place to start would be with a timeline on how things unfolded. And I would like to use this chance to say it's perfectly reasonable to point out that the virus started in Wuhan, China, but you are being a piece of shit if you're just calling it the straight up Chinese virus, because it just adds to racism, people being racist assholes. You can't be both, okay? You can't be a racist and scared of a virus, because that's not how viruses work. You're being an idiot. And now that's for us civilian type. As for people in power, leadership of countries and etc., when they do it, that's probably a good sign that they had a very bad response to this pandemic, because they're trying to scapegoat China instead of taking responsibility or stepping up to look after their people. Good example of this is the USA. You know, that country that's all about freedom and democracy versus the country where they don't pick their leader? Well, the one where they have no choice, at least they built them a hospital pronto to look after people. In the US, they're already talking about making people go back to work. I even have a piece of sound from a US senator just to highlight how stupid it is when you're just calling it the Chinese virus, and how stupid some of these people in leadership can be. Stupid/dishonest, you know?
Are you on board with the president calling this China virus, Chinese virus? Does it seem like that's helpful right now to call it that?
That's where it came from.
But is it helpful? It alienates people. It sort of sends like tones like there's someone to blame, that there is a group of people to blame.
Well, I think China is to blame because the culture where people eat bats and snakes and dogs and things like that, these viruses are transmitted from the animal to the people, and that's why China has been the source of a lot of these viruses like SARS, like MERS, the swine flu, and now the coronavirus. So I think they have a fundamental problem, and I don't object to geographically identifying where it's coming from.
Then it's connected to Asian Americans. The Asian Americans are feeling like it is a racist thing.
Oh, I disagree. I don't think we're not talking about Asians. We're talking about China, where these viruses emanate from and which are created this pandemic.
Yeah, I forgot for a second how ridiculous what he says is, so we'll pause this timeline here so we don't get too far behind and just quickly address that nonsense. Alright, I guess we'll start at the start. Here at What Do You Mean, we obviously don't support any market of endangered animals as food in illegal or unsafe ways for obvious reasons. And with that said, have you seen factory farming? Pretty bold to be talking about how people eat their food or what they eat in another country when your country just got rid of inspectors to look at your pork production, so you're going to eat a bunch of hair and genitals and feet. But anyways, how he says all these started in China. Alright, COVID-19, yes. SARS, I believe, yes. Swine flu, that was Mexico. MERS, the ME literally stands for Middle Eastern, so that's a bit awkward. And you see, I bet he didn't try to squeeze in mad cow because he knows that it's well known that mad cow started in the UK. Put on the record that there was Trump saying, well, China was trying to say it started here in the US. It started because of US soldiers, and that was sort of why I was trying to justify calling it the Chinese virus. I actually think that somewhere amongst all the bullshit in the White House, this guy actually got confused with how the Spanish flu actually did start on an army base in Kansas, and it ended up being called the Spanish flu because Spain was neutral and they were the only people reporting about it at the time. I actually think that that piece of history has got mixed up with this current situation. And a good general rule is, if you're not part of that race, steer clear on saying whether something is not racist towards them. Like, I don't think it's your place to say if it's not. Alright, now that we've addressed that, we should get back to this timeline. And it's already passed the month of January, so it's hit places like Canada, Australia, and many of China's direct neighbours. Alright, around the start of February, that's when all that Princess Diamond cruise ship mess happened, and by Valentine's Day it has hit every continent with confirmed cases in Egypt. Okay, the death toll has already well passed 1,000, And February 17th, Apple warns their investors that they probably won't meet the revenue they're expecting to get for the March quarter. I'll explain why I brought that up later on in the video. Alright, as the last passenger disembarks from the Princess Diamond, death toll surpassed 2,000. It's hit Iran and Italy. The neighboring countries of those countries close their borders. They start taking action like lockdowns and curfews, travel bans. And the reason I think the timeline is important, and to also touch back on that racism thing, if you really wanted to play the blame game, it would kind of look like this. Pakistan, Georgia, Afghanistan, Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Estonia, New Zealand, Belarus, and Azerbaijan would all be like,
"Why did you even rope me into this?"
to Iran, and Iran would be like,
"'Cause he roped me into this!"
to China. Meanwhile, Switzerland, Croatia, Austria, Algeria, Romania, Norway, North Macedonia, Greece, Brazil, San Marino, Nigeria, the Netherlands, Denmark, Mexico, Lithuania, and Iceland would all be like,
"What about me? He roped me into this!"
to Italy, with Italy being
Him over there, he roped me into this!
to China, and a bunch of other places pointing at cruise ships like,
Well, that one over there roped me into.
I just wanted to highlight how silly the blame game is and how it just distracts from the obvious important issue of keeping people healthy and safe. And also to highlight the importance of a government's response, because, like, for example, France was also one of the first countries hit, and whatever actions they took, you don't see their numbers every morning like the other countries with another 600, 700 dead, and you don't see that heaps of other countries now have it because of a traveller from France. And that's a country where they're all on the streets continuously in their yellow vests. And like, I can't tell you for certain. I'd love some first-hand reports back if anyone's got any friends in Iran or Italy, because from what publications that are in English say that these two countries, their governments didn't take it seriously to begin with. As you can see from this chart here showing the confirmed cases outside of China, that Iran and Italy quickly rushed to the top and quickly explode in numbers, with South Korea going from the top going down. Their number is still going up, but much slower, especially compared to the top two countries. That's the difference between taking it seriously and not. And here's a good example of why I didn't jump to make this video straight away, because
this is from the 23rd of March with the confirmed cases of 350,446 with 15,000 deaths and 100,000 recovered. And the same website from the 26th of March with the confirmed cases hitting 471,417 with deaths being 21,295 with 114,642 recoveries. With
many of those deaths being in Italy and Iran, which is absolutely fucked. It is tragic. Alright, we should probably quickly talk about the economy. With, yeah, obviously it's all turned to shit. What do you know? A lot of this relies on the workers. Go figure. Some of the biggest point drops in history have been recently. That pretty much covers everything you're going to see on your screen. Now, remember how I mentioned Apple and that they were giving a heads up to their investors like mid-February? That was a while ago. I'm going to use that now to segue to the American senators that got busted doing a spot of insider trading. Quick note, I reckon it's almost safe to say whatever Americans are doing, Australians are doing. Just saying. But yeah, back to the ones that were caught doing insider trading. You may have heard it here first, folks, here at What Do You Mean? But everyone else I heard speak about this issue kind of gave it the whole, we are disgusted that they were trading their stocks when they should have been telling the people about the virus. Well, the way I see it, the way that it makes sense to me, they didn't lie to the people while they sold their stocks. They lied to the people so they could sell their stocks. You hear what I'm saying? Like, they have the power to inform people, to kind of influence the price of their, I don't know, hotel stocks or whatever the fuck they have. So yeah, just gonna give it to you straight, folks. I kind of see it more of a so, not so much a while. Let's talk bailouts. I reckon it's cute how corporations are putting their hands out, especially ones like airlines that are all like, oh, give us some cash. And like, some of yous are the problem and why it's a whole lot worse. I'm looking at you, Qantas. And just like anyone else that's aware of the ins and outs of how Centrelink works from first first-hand experience, or like me from studying it, we all let out a sigh of, oh, fuck, when we found out that they're gonna sort out everyone that's lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Like, no doubt we all want people to be looked after, but Centrelink's track record under this Liberal government is, like, horrendous isn't even a strong enough word. And I just want to point out some issues that I believe might arise, like people that were already relying on the system now being, dropped down in priorities. And I read the bill that passed what they're trying to do here, and $555 a fortnight? Wow. Alright, yeah, we'll just take the US for a quick example. $2,500,000,000,000 to corporations. Now, if you just got that, you could give every American, just going off of their raw population numbers, $1,500, and that would kind of just almost be the same amount as what they want to give to corporations. If you just gave the whole handout to the people, they'd get $6,060 each. Just saying. Because did you see how much money they pumped into the stock market just to have it instantly? Alright, now let's get back to talking about what matters, which is people, and to the town hall of the modern era, the global town hall of Twitter. I see a lot of empty shelves because everyone's panic buying everywhere. There's like no exception. And yeah, more vulnerable people that can't get any food, and people that are hoarding stuff that doesn't even make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense to keep it all for yourself, so you must be trying to flog it off. And that leads to people price gouging. I was reading about someone selling hand sanitizer that was bought for £1 for £100. That's disgusting. And I'll talk more about price gouging after you listen to what this nurse from the UK has to say.
So I've just come out of the supermarket. There's no fruit and veg. I heard a little cry in there. I'm a critical care nurse. I've just finished 48 hours of work. I just wanted to get some stuff in for the next 48 hours. There's no fruit, there's no vegetables. I just don't know how I'm supposed to stay healthy. And there's people are just stripping the shelves of basic foods. You just need to stop it. Because there's people like me that are going to be looking after you when you're at your lowest. Just stop it, please.
And I rest my case against hoarding and panic buying. Like, do I need to say anything more after you watch that, nurse? Exactly. Alright, while you look at people in India disinfect their streets while they have to have like 1 billion people in lockdown, back to the price gouging, instantly I think of those particular valves which are needed for respirators or something, I believe, and those heroes, like nothing but heroes in Italy that worked out how to make them with a 3D printer to help save their fellow Italians' lives, because they actually asked the company for the patent on how to make them, and they said no, you need to give us 11 grand each for them, and they worked out how to make them for $1. So if you see Joe Biden trying to argue against Medicare for all with the whole the Italians have it, instantly shut that the fuck down and start bringing up patent laws. Alright, you hear me? And while you're there talking about the death toll in other countries, perhaps bring up the sanctions on Iran and how they definitely did not fucking help. Now, thanks to a friend of mine that sent me a Snapchat when they had to go line up at a Centrelink, this being included in my video reminds me to also mention my concern with the whole, alright, don't gather in large groups. So the panic buying at supermarkets, that looks stupid and concerning, and queuing up because their website crashed, and you can't tell people to stay away from each other and then cause more reasons for them to have to be near each other. And here's some words from the Director General of the WHO.
More than 300,000 cases of COVID-19 have now been reported to WHO from almost every country in the world. That's heartbreaking. The pandemic is accelerating. It took 67 days from the first reported case to reach the first 100,000 cases. 11 days for the second 100,000 cases. And just 4 days for the third 100,000 cases. You can see how the virus is accelerating. But we're not prisoners to statistics. We're not helpless bystanders. We can change the trajectory of this pandemic.
Doctors in Spain are having to pick who lives and who doesn't because they're running out of stuff they need. So please stay safe, guys. Look after yourselves and look after each other. And last thing, why do we try to make ourselves feel better with statistics of flu deaths in a country that doesn't even have universal healthcare, so that many people probably didn't need to die from the flu?